Why don't comics get adapted into TV series more often? Let's talk about it. Now, as someone who has always I've always been an anime and manga fan first. That's just what I was. That's what type of timing I was on, man. But I grew up reading manga, and I always saw those manga get adaptations eventually, into anime, of course, and it always kind of shocked me. Once I started to for real get into comics, picking them up every Wednesday, buying trades, omnibuses, things like that. It always shocked me that there are virtually no one-to-one adaptations, at least when it comes to, Marvel and DC projects, right? Like, obviously, we have Invincible, Kick-Ass, other, shows that have gotten, comics that have gotten adapted, but, you know, never Marvel or DC. And it always kind of, shocked me. I think there are, some runs that, I think would actually go crazy, getting adapted. I think J.M. DeMatteis, I think his run on Spidey, his Justice League International run, I think would also go crazy in animation. Chris Claremont's X-Men Saga. I think we are kind of seeing X-Men 97, but that's not a one-to-one adaptation, right? I think Scott Snyder's Batman Epic, I think that could be great. We are getting the Nightfall Saga, which is gonna be great more than likely. And yeah, man, I just think there are a lot of runs out there that I think being adapted into television series, I think it's kind of a missed opportunity for them not to touch it at all. I think comics are actually just might be a hot take. I think comics are better in television. I think they're made for television as opposed to movies. Not to diss movies or anything like that. I obviously love movies still, but I think I think they're just better for television, man. Comics are like I said, I think they're meant to be animated. Based on the stories that Marvel and DC tend to tell. Their superhero stories. I think them being in animation is better. I would have them kind of be, because I don't think it would. They should be as I guess brutal as I think some stories absolutely should be as brutal as in Invincible, but I think most of those stories don't really need that. The Walking Dead, for example, is a story that I think in live action it works. That's probably my favorite. The Walking Dead is probably my favorite comic of all time, but I would love to see an animated show of that comic. And honestly, I'm pretty sure AMC has the rights to it, and it's this whole thing. But yeah, let me get back to the point. Obviously, oh my god, I can't say obviously to save my life, bro. I don't know what's going on. But obviously, we had Invincible, right, which concluded in 2018, I believe, and the comic run was popular, right? But after it ended, it kind of dried up, whatever. Bro, the show brought a new light to Invincible, and the success that the show has had, we're getting it more Invincible merch. We're finally getting an omnibus, which what was taking them so long. We're getting the game, which I'm definitely copying, and it feels like ever since the show Invincible has pretty much reached heights that it never would have reached before without this adaptation. I honestly think that if we saw more of these runs get adapted, I think it would just boost more success into the comics. But looking at anime, right? Anime always boosts manga sales. Sakamoto Days, for example, is an example of a manga that got very popular because of the anime. Tokyo Revengers. Let's look at some other examples. JJK, obviously, Chainsaw Man. There are just so many series that have reaped so many benefits from getting an anime adaptation, and I just think it's a no-brainer to have comics be adapted into animation, things like that, because I think this would revitalize the comic book industry. Not saying that the industry is dead or anything like that, but I just think that it never really made sense to me, right? It never made sense to me why we didn't get adaptations, and I don't want to see, okay? I know a lot of people are going to say, a Batman anime would be tough. No, 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 no. I want a Batman animated series, man. I'm tired of people making everything into anime, bro. These guys will make anything anime. Metal Gear Solid, the anime. Doom: The Dark Ages, the anime. Like, what are we doing? God, nah, I'm trolling. But I want to see all of these runs get animated. Obviously, whether that happens or not, that's a topic for another day. But I'm not saying that we can't get original stories, right? Like, I love original stories. Some of my favorite stories, some of my favorite comic book films are literally original. Well, all of them pretty much are, right? And animation is costly, so I mean, it that is like the main hurdle. Obviously, is like, you're adapting this 100 issue epic, and you have to deal with the animation costs. This is probably going to span multiple seasons, things like that. So you do have to think about it from that aspect for sure. Um, but to be honest, like, I think, another argument for myself is some people also just may not want to see these stories again in animation. Like, some of my favorite manga, like, I don't even watch the anime like after they release. So, I am kind of a hypocrite myself. I'm talking about how this is a great thing, but I don't watch like Gachiakuta, for example. I was on that series like before the anime dropped. Not trying to like gatekeep or anything like that, but the anime, like, I watched like the first couple of episodes of the anime, and I just been falling off it, man. Like, and that doesn't even mean like the anime is bad or anything like that. It's more so just that, maybe I just don't want to. Maybe I just don't want to go back and forth and relive those moments right now. I'll probably go watch the anime in a couple of months and things like that. But that is, I guess a point that could be made. Invincible could be an anomaly. Who knows? Who knows, man? But honestly, listen, guys, I'm going to end this video pitching what I think Marvel and DC should do, what they should, kind of use to test the waters, right? First things first, I think we should get an absolute universe animated saga, right? And then I think a Marvel should, adapt, Bendis is like his whole Marvel era or whatever. They could also do Hickman's Marvel saga as well, because um that is kind of like we're kind of in that Secret Wars era. So that would make sense. Honestly, as well, if they wanted to do like Solo, I could see them doing like the Immortal Hulk over at Marvel, and maybe they do Grant Morrison's Batman at DC. But, what do I know, guys? Let me know. Why don't comics get adapted more often, man? Like, please let me know, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I am a bit tired, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds like a little annoying, but I'll see y'all boys in the next one, and peace.